Life can take a toll on a person's life. However, the experience of war and leaving your country can change someone's life and themselves. My grandmother, Gloria Guzman, has become a strong woman from what she has gone through in her earlier life. She has gone through many hardships and things in her childhood, the Civil War in El Salvador, and by immigrating to the United States. My grandmother is a spirited woman today because of how she was raised and what she has experienced during her childhood. She was born on January 19th, 1961, in San Salvador, El Salvador, where she had a mother, a father, and two sisters. She went to an elementary school until she was 14 years old, by then moving on to high school. I interviewed my grandmother, and she said after school I would head home to do my homework, and the one chore I had to complete was washing the dishes, because in our household we had a maid that did all the cleaning. Afterwards, when her parents would come home, they would eat dinner and watch a show on television before they fell asleep. Although the childhood happiness my grandmother cherished will soon take a turn for the worse. My grandmother has beloved memories of her early childhood, but she started to experience a great amount of hardships during the Civil War in El Salvador. According to the editors of Brinicana.com, the Civil War in El Salvador began in 1980 as the guerrilla, an irregular military force, armed forces together and fought against the government in El Salvador. Her father was a government employee, and due to his involvement, the guerrilla shot him 22 times cold blank as a punishment, therefore enforcing my grandmother and her family to leave their household because the guerrilla threatened to eliminate them for having an affiliation with him. Her family traveled to her aunt's house for a week to then move on to another household to stay alive and hidden. During this time, she had my father when she was 16 years old, and shortly after, a year when she was 17, she gave birth to my aunt. As the Civil War was getting more disastrous and people were being executed, my grandmother had to make a decision that would change her life and the life of her children forever. My grandmother is the type of woman she is today, from the perseverance she had to undergo when she began her journey to immigrate her and her children to the United States. On her journey to immigrate to the United States, she had to leave behind my father and my aunt with her mother in 1981. With her passport that she had from El Salvador, she traveled to Guatemala. Shortly after, she took a bus with a group of friends in Mexico City. Afterwards, her and her friends met with a coyote. She explained to me that a coyote is a smuggler. The coyote that she met was a Caucasian male who helped her cross the border in his vehicle all the way to Hollywood, California. Her and her friends lived in an apartment in Hollywood, California, where she was able to find a job in Santa Ana, California, at a restaurant where she cleaned the floors. When she earned enough money, she flew back to El Salvador in 1982, where she went to retrieve her kids. She traveled with my aunt and my father to Mexico City via airplane, then a second flight to Tijuana, Mexico. She met with a Hispanic smuggler, and he crossed the border with only the kids by car and handed them over to their biological father. She attempted to cross alone twice, but was caught because she kept trying to walk through the borders. In her third attempt, a 12-year-old kid helped her cross the borders by weaving through a semi-truck port. She met a coyote lady in the U.S. state lines that brought her back to Hollywood, where her kids and their biological father were at. Finally, when she made it to Hollywood, she obtained a job at Carl's Jr. for the next 5 years, in which allowed her to move to Culver City for the next 15 years. Furthermore, as she lived in Culver City, she submitted immigration paperwork in 1987 when Ronald Reagan opened amnesty. According to the New York Times by Robert Peer and special to the New York Times, Ronald Reagan's law for amnesty was to aliens who can show that they entered the United States before January 1st, 1982, and have resided here continuously in unlawful status. Afterwards, her and my father became a resident of the United States in 1993. Finally, she moved to Arizona to allow her child to attend college and was able to purchased her first home in December 1998, where she currently lives now. She continued to grow her family even more and continues enjoying the family she has created. From what she has experienced in her earlier years, she has become my inspiration to be a woman that will fight for change, not only for her children, but her adoptive country. The events she has gone through in her early childhood, the Civil War, and by immigrating to the United States has set the foundation of who she is now. She had to leave behind her mother, her sisters, all the memories she created, and the good life she had, especially with her father. There's a quote by Helen Keller, a blind activist for the women's suffrage, pacifism, blind birth control, and welfare of the blindness, according to the editors of biography.com, where she states that the struggle of life is one of our greatest blessings. It makes us patient, sensitive, and godlike. It teaches us that although the world is full of suffering, it is also the full of the overcoming of it. Thank you.